The news continues in Central Africa, where President Felix Tshisekedi has been declared the winner of Democratic Republic of Congo's election. The president won about 73% of the vote, with his nearest challenger, Moise Katumbi, on 18%. Now, the December 20th election was marred by widespread logistical problems. The election chief, Kadima, acknowledged some irregularities but insisted that the result reflected the will of the Congolese people. The president will be sworn in for a second term on January 20th. None of the other 17 candidates gained more than 1% of the vote.
Valablement exprimé, soit un pourcentage de 73,34%.
To discuss this further, I'm joined by foreign public analyst. Of course, that's Bolu, Michael-Biyi. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
All right. Now, what's your assessment of the whole election process, and how would you rate the Electoral Commission's performance?
Well, in any country, I think there's no process in the electoral process that will be perfect. Definitely, there'll be some, shortcomings here and there. However, the most important thing is that it reflects the will of the people, and considering the margin, it speaks to the fact that even if it might not be 71% truly, that majority of Congolese people actually do want the president Tshisekedi to be the president. So I think that based on assessment, definitely there are aggrieved parties. I think the headlines of the news is not plagued with violence, news of violence or killings and things like that. So I think the Electoral Commission did fairly well. I mean, to the optimum best of their ability.
Now, of course, what would you say were the major factors that contributed to the incumbent securing victory in the recent elections?
I'll say basically it's the economic growth. Congo has experienced a level of economic growth following the pandemic, like most countries. Is coming from an economy during the pandemic, which was literally standstill, and then back to economic activities. Most countries will experience economic growth. I think that's what's responsible for its victory. In 2021, the GDP was around 6.2%. And in 2022, it grew to almost 9%, precisely 8.92%, which is good. However, I think it could have done better. But Tshisekedi is a saint compared to the previous president that Congo has had, and I think that's some of these factors contributed to his victory.
All right, now talking about the outcome of the elections, of course, election chief, that's Dennis Kadima, actually acknowledged some irregularities, particularly in the area of logistics. However, I still insisted that it reflected the will of the people. I would like to focus on the irregularities, particularly when on the aspect of logistics, which of course News Central actually did follow, and some of the analysts who are live on ground actually did acknowledge the fact that materials got to some pulling boots really late, while some didn't even get it at all. So, I mean, looking at all of these factors and then an eventual result was presented, how do you marry all of this and still say, I mean, the election was credible?
Well, not like entirely credible, but the most fun thing is that it reflects the will of the people. There's no electoral process that will be perfect. It can only be more perfect than the previous. And in Africa, where election takes like 4 to 5 years, like a person sleeping for 4 to 5 years and then suddenly wake them up. These things are bound to come up, considering the lack of technological know-how and not really having the infrastructure to actually make these things happen. No really good rail system, transportation, and actually to move materials even to remote places where some areas don't even have access in terms of roads. So these things are bound to happen, considering the crude nature of the African climate. However, what's important is that these irregularities, are they substantial enough to vitiate the entire process. Should the election be conducted again in these areas, would it affect greatly the outcome of the entire results of the entire election? That's what matters. So we don't expect something perfect, but the most important thing that reflect the will of the people.
All right. Now, I'll just ask you also that what are the takeaways from this particular elections, and also any significant challenges that the president may face in governing the country, considering the opposition's response to his victory?
Okay, a united country is easier to govern. I think his first challenge will be to defend his mandate. They're likely to probably take him to court. And secondly is, to kind of unite the nation. It's very important that it begins to reach out to the opposition so that we don't see another case whereby we're having a coup on the continent. And lastly, I think another challenge he may face is sustaining the economic progress. This the second time we prove whether the progress that Congo has seen is a fluke or actually is policy working. And there are some things that it needs to do, like putting fiscal policy in place, monetary policy, and investing in infrastructure development. And the general things that actually make economics not grow in the African climate, such as corruption, political instability, poor government administration, and lack or inadequate investment in human capital could be his major challenge. And he has an opportunity to really prove himself and his economic policies.
Bolu Michael-Biyi, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right.